Ben 10 is back, and it might be the craziest thing the franchise has done in years. A retelling of the original story that we already knew. We're in for a complete redesign and an overhaul of the original story, which should be really interesting. We've all waited a long time for this, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. We start off the story with a familiar figure who we know to be Vilgax scouring the universe for a weapon. It seems here that he has everything and is looking for something new, into which his soldiers tell him that they have located the weapon that will pique his interest. We finally jump over to our first shots of Ben, Gwen, and Grandpa Max. And this is really cool because it's a full character redesign here. But we basically get the same kind of joking back and forth between Ben and Gwen, similar arguments, and them talking about how this summer is going to be really hard. Grandpa Max tries his best to make sure that they know that this summer is going to be a long one and that they should try their best to get along. However, obviously, as we know, and Ben's character has always been, that is not so easy. Ben pulls out his sumo slammer cards and, he's extremely excited about them, showing them off, as Gwen shows little to no interest whatsoever. Gwen finally pushes Ben's buttons enough, telling him that the only reason he's on this trip is so his parents can get rid of him for the summer. This obviously disturbs Ben very much, and in an agitated way, he takes off. We then follow a random soldier calling out that there's something that has entered the atmosphere, and they're not quite sure what it is. But we do. As a Ben 10 fan, we've been waiting for this for a long time, and even though it's a retelling, it is still very exciting to know what's coming. We then follow Ben walking through the woods, kicking around because he's very frustrated and thinking about how hard this summer's going to be having to spend with his annoying cousin. As he's walking around, he takes a look at the sky and sees something burning up. At first, he thinks nothing of it, but then he looks and it's coming right at him. Out of shock, he takes off. And as the reader, and if you were a Ben 10 fan for as long as we've all been waiting, you know exactly what this is and how cool of a moment it is to see this once again. After 20 years, this is insane. But it lands, and they couldn't have drawn this in a more zesty way. It was very funny. They could have chosen any way to throw him back, but they threw him forward just like this. And so here we are with an explosion with the Omnitrix. Ben bends down. He's not sure what he's looking at. A glowing puddle of radiation almost, emanating from this meteor, and he's not too sure what to make of it. And as he stares down into the abyss of this green light, something jumps up and attaches to his wrist, just like the original story that we know. And this is where we get our first look at the new Omnitrix, and it looks absolutely insane. It doesn't just jump to his wrist like the original Omnitrix. This thing spirals and wraps around with random wires and trinkets. And as a huge fan of the original Omnitrix, I would say this is a little bit of a disservice. I'm okay with it, but it could be a lot cooler like the original. However, carrying on, Ben looks with extreme shock, obviously in fear because something from this space pod just jumped up and wrapped around his wrist like a random alien. I feel like any little kid would probably be terrified at this exact moment, not knowing the power that he wields. We then follow up with a quick shot of the Omnitrix, looking like spiraled barbed wire wrapped around his wrist. I'm very interested to know what y'all think about this new Omnitrix, so after the video, make sure to drop down to the comments and, just let me know what y'all think of this new Omnitrix. We then follow the army searching for the meteor that had just came down to Earth. They obviously know that something is up and that it wasn't just a regular meteorite for them to send the entire military like this. And this is kind of different from the original Ben, as from what we had seen before. We're used to the aliens showing up and attacking. Ben transforms and that's it. But here, we have the actual military knowing that something's up already. We then follow Grandpa Max searching through the woods for Ben. He's obviously very concerned because his grandson can be a huge troublemaker. With little to no hope of finding him, in the woods, it's very vast, it's dark, it's hard to see. He goes back and tells Gwen that he's going to be out for a while and if she's going to be okay, looking out for herself. We now flip to the moment we've all been waiting for. A huge cyborg bear comes out of nowhere and attacks Ben. Obviously, Ben, not knowing what to do, calls out for something to help him, into which the Watch responds. And unlike the original watch, it doesn't seem like he pushes anything really. He may have, we'll see it in an action shot later. However, it looks like the first transformation we're going to get is forearms, and this is absolutely awesome. I love that we get this mid transformation shot where instead of it's just like bubble spin and he's kind of turning into the alien, we get to see that like he's still a little kid forming an extra arm and his skin's turning red and the muscles and veins are popping out, and then boom, we get this awesome shot of this new design of forearms. Let me know what y'all think about it down in the comments below. I think he looks cool. I think all of these designs kind of have a futuristic look to them in a more like war style look, which is pretty awesome. And so we end up following Ben fighting this cyborg bear, into which we have no idea where it came from. The military did not send this. This wasn't a pod from outer space. So, as far as I'm concerned, this is just a random cyborg bear that happened to stumble upon Ben right around the same time that he got the Omnitrix. And just like the Omnitrix, in a very timely fashion, Ben starts to regress backwards into his original state. And I think this is really cool because it's nice to see the details of, him going through a DNA reconstruction and then returning back with some kind of consequence, as in the original, we don't really see anything like this. And so, with complete surprise, Ben just is sitting there like, what had just happened? He had just turned into an alien for the first time, and it was honestly a really cool experience. However, with the bear still on his tail, there's nothing he can do but try to use the Omnitrix again. Into which I don't know how much time passed, but he does it. And we get our first sight of Heat Blast. Now, for the sake of the original story, I'll still be calling them by their real names until we get an updated name change, if such thing occurs. And so, in kind of a funny, Ben fashion, he kind of torches this bear. And after he torches it, he lets it know that he's sorry and that, it's kind of freaking him out too that he's on fire and that he's not surprised that the bear is running away. With all the fire that Ben created, it alerted the army. And as the army kind of pushes in, they're like wondering what had caused this. Obviously, they have no idea the events that had just unfolded, allowing Ben to find the Omnitrix and move on. We then get a shot of Gwen sitting up here in the camper as she's wondering what's going on and why everything's taking so long when Ben or Max is going to be back. And for our final page, we get this cool shot of Vilgax basically saying that, they've locked onto the Omnitrix and they're on their way. And this basically brings an end to issue 1. Now, I want to know what y'all think about this new cover, these new alien designs, basically everything new because it's completely revamped. I appreciate your time. If you made it this far, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll be back for each issue drop. I appreciate it and have a great day.